It's 1 minute after. I'm going to go ahead and change the security settings.
Fellow Zionists, thank you for joining Jewish National Fund USA's weekly briefing. I am Lizerbram, president of Jewish National Fund USA. It is day 222 of the war in Israel. In the midst of this difficult year, we hope that you found a meaningful way to mark Yom HaZikaron, Israel's Memorial Day, and just as important, that you found a way to celebrate Israel's 76th Independence Day. While all celebrations this year have felt the shadow of this war, I want to offer that no Jewish celebration is without a reminder of a fractured world. At a Jewish wedding, we break a glass to recall the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem thousands of years ago. The dissonance of tragedy and celebration is not foreign to us as Jews, and therefore we must persevere. We must continue to rejoice when we can and choose life. Our first guest today is Jonathan Tobin. Jonathan is editor-in-chief of the Jewish News Syndicate, JNF.org, and a senior contributor for The Federalist, as well as a columnist for Newsweek and Israel Hayom. He's a regular contributor for the Washington Examiner, Commentary magazines, and other publications. He's also the host of the JNS Top Story podcast, both the weekly video program and the Top Story daily program, which are both heard on all major audio platforms and YouTube. He's won more than 60 awards for his writing and appears regularly on television, commenting on politics and foreign policy. Jonathan, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this, especially in a week like this, week of Yom Zikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut. I think it's especially important for us to take a moment and think about where we stand. And I was so glad that you opened your remarks in the introduction by saying fellow Zionists. It is a week of mourning and celebration. And I want to start by saying that, we live, certainly here in the United States, in a time of hyperpartisanship, and in which we are essentially a bifurcated nation, with people reading, listening, and watching different media depending on their political affiliations. And everything that happens can be viewed in a political context, and only viewed in that way. And I think many American Jews are like that too. But I want to take us out of that for a moment, out of the pro and con Netanyahu arguments, the pro and con Biden arguments, or the pro and con Trump arguments. Because our situation as Jews and as supporters of Israel is really unique. I don't think you can overestimate the seriousness of the situation that we are facing. It is, without a doubt, the most challenging moment in Jewish history since the Holocaust. And the October 7th attack on Israel, we understand, those of us who have been there, we saw the sites. It's kind of like visiting the camps, the sites of the camps in the Holocaust. And we understand what Israel is going through, or at least we should. But I think many American Jews have awakened to a world in which they are also under attack. And that's really what's different now. And with a revival of anti-Zionism, the mainstreaming of it, and the surge in anti-Semitism, we are facing a very different challenge as American Jews, as Zionists, and as supporters of Israel. Now, some things are the same and some things are different. And that's how I think we need to approach this. Israel's security and diplomatic situation is obviously very challenging right now. As the New York Times, perhaps overeager in its headline over the weekend saying that Israel was isolated, well, they're kind of right. Israel is more or less isolated. The rest of the world has largely turned on it. And its military situation is such, obviously the October 7th attacks, the ongoing war in Gaza, the grievous losses that Israel has gone through both on October 7th and since then. This is, incredibly challenging. And I think all of us who care about Israel, we're sad, we're frustrated and angry. Even 7 months later, we're still staggering from that. And we're also frustrated and angry about the hypocrisy and lies of much of the world in describing what has happened since then. And in terms of the double standards, judging Israel's conduct, attempts to limit its ability to defend itself. And also, and this hits close to home for me as a journalist, the tremendous bias that has been shown in the coverage of the war, in which many of the corporate mainstream media outlets have more or less become Hamas's stenographers in many of the ways that they approach this, even as the casualty figures, the vastly exaggerated, and as some scholars, as people I've interviewed say, these are clearly fake, they're still using them. But in some ways, that's kind of the world Israel has always lived in. This is a degree of scale, the situation is worse, but Israel has always faced these challenges of the world being against it, viewing its security challenges as of no account, the media bias. This is an ongoing story. But what's different now is what's happening here for us as American Jews and as supporters of Israel. In my adult lifetime, we've never seen anything like the mainstreaming of anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. And what's happened in the last 7 months, not just on college campuses, but we're certainly focusing on that. It's fundamentally different than the challenge that American Jews have faced in the last 80 years, and certainly the 76 years since Israel's rebirth. What has made it different is the change in our culture, the change in the institutions that many of us look to. The long march of sort of the radical left, who have imposed what we call woke, for lack of a better term, of ideology, critical race theory, intersectionality, the sort of woke catechism of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is not just changing the conversation, it's attempting to change America. And what I think a lot of us viewed the discussion about these ideas for the past few years is that it was just part of the partisan culture war, Republicans versus Democrats, liberals versus conservatives. But I think as some of us picked up on in the last few years, but not all of us, is that these ideologies, they're terrible for America. They lock us in a permanent conflict over race, which divides and hurts this country. But they also grant a permission slip to anti-Semitism, because in this attempt to divide the world into two groups perpetually at war of white oppressors and people of color who are victims, they define Jews and Israel as white oppressors. That makes no sense because of all the persecution we've suffered, and some Jews want to be included in that, saying, wait, no, include us as one of the protected groups. But it doesn't work because, as in it's true to its neo-Marxist roots, they will never accept Jews as among the oppressed. We always fit into that. And that is changing everything for us. This is a neo-Marxist war on Western civilization and America's vision of itself as a bastion of freedom. And the thing about that is that it destroys American exceptionalism. And American exceptionalism, a concept much debated, has always been the one guarantee of American Jewish freedom and prosperity. That's why this country is different. Woke ideology is a threat to America in the long run, but as we've seen in the last 6 months, it is a clear and present danger to American Jews, not just our kids on college campuses who are finding themselves in deeply hostile environments, but in the way that arguments about Israel that would never have received platforming in major institutions, major outlets like the New York Times and the Washington Post, what we would have easily defined as anti-Semitism is now considered something that reasonable people should agree to disagree about. We don't accept that. So that, in some ways, the challenge to American Jewry is more serious to the one to Israel, and it affects our ability to help Israel. Israel is under siege, and it's still bleeding. But what I found during my recent visit to Israel, I spent most of February there, is that, as sad as it can be and as worrisome as its challenges are, it is still resilient. I found a country where its young people were willing to fight to defend it, willing to risk themselves, and not just kids, but men in their 30s and 40s, willing to risk their lives, leave their businesses. I couldn't help but be inspired by the spirit. As much as there is political division and trauma, the spirit of Israel is resilient. I was inspired by what I found in Israel, as much as I am depressed by a lot of what is going on in this country. American Jews are now being tested. And the question is, will we effectively stand up for our rights and our ability to be authentically and faithfully Jewish in the public square? What can only be defined as a pro-Hamas moment and a movement in the West is effectively destroying the one thing that might have changed the situation in the Middle East for the better. Had Israel been allowed to destroy Hamas quickly and effectively, there was a chance that, as it happened at the end of World War II, when Germany was forced to reject the ideology and Germans saw the consequences of following a genocidal movement, Palestinians, had they seen the world turn on them, as they should have after October 7th, and Hamas to be destroyed, they might have, that might have been the moment for the political sea change among the Palestinians in their culture that would have allowed for peace, which has never been allowed, whether we were talking about Hamas or Fatah. So that is deeply depressing. All of this support for so-called pro-Palestine, so-called, the people chanting from the river to the sea and globalized intifada, they're not endangering Israel so much as they are endangering American Jews, and they're sending the message to the Palestinians that they can hold on to their fantasy of destroying Israel. And that just dooms them and Israel to unlimited conflict for as long as we can see. So my closing thoughts to you is that as we approach these problems, let's be realistic. Let's avoid magical thinking, whether it's magical thinking of the left about how a peace can be achieved despite everything we know about the current situation, or magical thinking on the right about making the Palestinians disappear. Let's stick to the world as it is. As a journalist, that's my job. The rest of us need to do that as well. But as Jews, as Zionists, as supporters of Israel, we also need two other things. We need faith in the justice of our cause, because despite all of the calumnies that have been thrown at Israel, all the ways, the effort to redefine Zionism as racism, an old Soviet era propaganda talking point, we need to have faith in the justice of our cause. We cannot allow ourselves to be talked into abandoning that. And just as, if not more important, the one quality that we need, and it's not just the information to refute the lies about Israel, it's the courage to speak up. That's what we are sometimes missing in our American Jewish culture, the courage to speak up and fight for what we believe in, for what we know to be right. If we retain our faith and we find the courage to speak, I have no doubt that Israel and the cause of Zionism, wherever we are will prevail. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Well, thanks, Jonathan. You know, the key words it seems like that you brought up was resilience, courage, and faith. And if we can all remember that, I think we should all be part of that great Zionist feeling. Jonathan, as a couple questions might come in, I just wanted to ask you if you saw any type of discussion while you're over in Israel about the North and the feelings about what's happening in the North.
Well, I certainly did, and spoke to people from there. And you know, if you're in Israel, you know, one of the things you notice, as if you even just go along the, you know, the boardwalk in Tel Aviv, along the beach, and you walk into the hotels, you'll see, wow, the hotels are full. But they're not full of tourists for the most part, although there are some, fortunately, some American Jews who are going. They're full of Israelis who are basically refugees in their own country, people from the south, as well as all the people from the communities along the northern border whose homes have been rendered uninhabitable by the fire from either Hezbollah in the north or Hamas in the south. And that cannot stand. You know, one of the reasons why I think Israel has to finish off Hamas in Rafah is that people can't go home. And until Hamas is finished off, Israel isn't going to be able to address the threat from Hezbollah. Just yesterday, you know, one of the, you know, Iron Dome can't stop anti-tank missiles. And just yesterday, we saw a firing of an anti-tank missile that, you know, that killed some people in the north. So, you know, I think there is a strong belief among many people that I spoke to that once the situation in Gaza is, if not completely resolved, but stabilized, then Israel must address the situation in the north. It cannot go on with all of the border communities being basically turned into ghost towns. That's not just merely a victory for Israel's enemies, but it's not a viable solution for a country. It's bad enough that you have hundreds of thousands of men who have left their jobs and are serving in the army, and Israel has to pay their salaries, you know, the government, and as well as pay the hotel bills of all the people who have been forced to become refugees in their own country. That's a fact. I try to mention this whenever I'm on, you know, secular media. You know, this is the most underreported aspect of you know, story in this war is all the Jewish refugees.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan, for joining us today. And a reminder that Jonathan is also a member of the Jewish National Fund USA Global Speakers Bureau. You can bring Jonathan to your community by visiting jnfglobalspeakers.org. Our next guest is Maya Arfi, Manager of External Relations of Jewish National Fund USA affiliate Hashomer HaChadash. Maya, thank you so much for your partnership and for working tirelessly with our team as we continue to bring hundreds of volunteers to Israel each month. Please share your updates with us, Maya.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here with all of you. So as I was introduced, my name is Maya Arfi. I live in the Negev, and I represent Hashomer HaChadash. And Hashomer HaChadash is everything to do with agriculture. When we speak of agriculture, you know, you were mentioning before resilience. Agriculture is our resilience. One, it enables us to have food security, to feed our own people, to protect ourselves in that manner. And secondly, our agriculture is literally protecting our lands. The presence of these farmers on our borders, which is where most of the Israeli fields, agriculture fields are located, is the way for us to protect our borders, protect our lands, and make them thrive and prosper. So without agriculture, Israel is much weaker. So Hashomer HaChadash focuses on food security, strengthening the land, and really connecting the people of the Jewish world to the land of Israel to understand this importance. And obviously, as most of you probably heard, it was very common to come and volunteer in agriculture, you know, in the 70s. And it's a movement that kind of stopped over the years. People were coming from all over the world to join kibbutzim across Israel for that experience. And since the outbreak of the war, we kind of saw this 70s trend come back. I remember, I think it was maybe the end of October or the beginning of November, Dina Sheaf appeared on the border of Egypt, which is where I live. And she said, JNF, we're going to bring buses every week of Americans that were coming to volunteer with Hashomer HaChadash in agriculture. And I smiled politely and I said, okay. And, I think it must have been less than a month after, buses of people were just fled into started flooding the country to come and help farmers across Israel. And I mean, really, it's hard to describe the feeling. I remember the first bus that came. We met them at a farm of a farmer called Eliran El Musnino. Eliran was an incredible farmer that decided to build his farm on the border with Egypt out of a Zionist mission. And on the 7th of October, he left his 5 kids and wife and went to fight in the Gaza envelope. And he was killed just hours into the very first battle, saving people's lives. And this farm was abandoned. His wife, sorry, my dog here, his wife and kids were left with the struggle by themselves. They turned to Hashomer HaChadash, and of course, we were happy to help them. And, this is the way to not only help this one family, but also, as I said before, secure our nation's food, our people's food. And this is the first bus of JNF. They came to this farm. And since then, we've had 2,500 Americans come through the JNF community to volunteer with us. We've had people from all over the world. Hashomer has managed to bring over 250,000 volunteers to come and assist farmers. Over 10,000 people from across the world. And, you're lost for words when you see people coming to Israel during a war, wanting to make it more resilient, stronger. That sense of unity is really, you can't describe it. And I'm going to just briefly present Amit Meir, who is here with me and works together with me in Hashomer HaChadash. Amit is actually, during these days, in and out of Gaza. He is in the Air Force rescue unit, rescuing soldiers that are wounded in battle. And he established Hashomer HaChadash boarding school network, Adam ve'Adama, Man and Land. And I just want him to focus a little bit about what our boarding school network has done since the beginning of the war. I'll just say that the first school was established together with JNF in the Arava Desert. Amit, if you want to I'll explain a little bit and you can say a bit more of the stats of what we've been doing. But briefly, these schools, this school that we established in the Arava was aimed to help farmers, in a very far away periphery of Israel, help strengthen these farmers. Our students wake up every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, work with farmers for half a day. Then they go and do their, their high school studies. They also learn Zionism and Judaism. They also learn agri-tech. So that's really briefly about the school. But since then, we've established 4 schools, and we're now looking to establish 2 more schools, one in the Gaza envelope, one in the Egyptian border. So a lot more to do, but I'll let Amit continue from there. So Amit.
So hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us to speak with you. As Maya said, I just finished my reserves in the Army in the 669. My team rescued more than 150 soldiers from Gaza, and I have reserves next month in Rafah. And yeah, when the war started, so in the 8th of October, our students just say we are here and we are continue to learn and help to the farmers. When all the schools in Israel were closed, so Adam ve'Adama, first of all, come to the fields, come to the greenhouses, and help to more than 200 farmers in the last 7 months. And yeah, our mission is to create, to create leaders, to create, the next future of the next generation of the future in Israel through agriculture, through education. And we have a few students that live in Gaza envelope. I want to speak about one of our students. Her name it's Gali Cohen from Kibbutz Kfar Aza, and she's rescue older families. Her father are murdered. He was the commanders of the soldiers in Kfar Aza, and she's helped to all the soldiers in Kfar Aza to manage all the houses in the kibbutz and to really helped to organize all the situation there. And another girl, his name is Aya from Kibbutz Cholit. She's rescue her family. So we have a lot of students from Gaza envelope that really are, they were heroes and helped to their families to survive it. And after that, yeah, like Maya said, we help to lots of farmers, and we are continue also in the Galilee and in the Golan Heights also, and in the Arava region, and also we have a school in Kfar Silver near Ashkelon. And we want to build another two programs in Eshkol region and also in Ramat Negev region in Nitzana. And yeah, I think the war are really show us how much important Adam V'Adama and HaShomer Chadash, how much the mission is important. And I really want to thank you for all your support along the war with a lot of volunteers and also donors to continue our mission. And yeah, right now we are good and we want to continue. If you had any questions or.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service. I mean, that's number one. But I have to tell you, Maya and Amit, on the volunteer missions, Lauren and I were on the first volunteer mission. And I don't know how many dozens and dozens of times we've been to Israel, but it was absolutely the most meaningful trip that we've ever taken. And the farmers, this was the first mission, the farmers were like asking us, why would we do this? Why would we come, all the way halfway around the world to volunteer? I don't know if they're still getting that response, but maybe they're getting hopefully used to it, that we want to be there. But that was the response that we saw on the first volunteer mission.
I think they're still surprised that people are coming from overseas to come and help Israel. And I mean, just to have you understand, Israel imports a lot of its fruit and vegetable, which is wild because we have the most amazing fruit and vegetables, I think the best in the entire world. Israel brings a lot of its food from Turkey, Jordan, Ukraine. I don't need it to even explain what we all think about these countries and why should Israel be depending on these countries. One has its own war, one is hostile to Israel, one we don't really know. Israel should be, self-sustained, and the only way to do it is bringing people, Jews from all over the world, and Israel more resilient and able to to produce. So I think on one hand it's a surprise to these farmers, but I think on the other, we know that only by unity is the only way to strengthen Israel.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. So I want to thank Maya and Amit. Thank you so much for joining us today. For now, you can learn more on the impact you're having on the ground by visiting jnf.org/support Israel. And if you want to be part of the largest gathering of enthusiastic Zionists, join us for our global conference for Israel, taking place this year in Dallas, Texas, from November 14th to the 17th. Over 1,000 people have already registered. Michael Rappaport will be there, Rabbi David Wolpe, Professor Shai Davidai, and many more. You'll come away feeling inspired. Register now at jnf.org/global. If you can't wait until November, you can join us on the volunteer working mission to Israel. Visit jnf.org/volunteeril. And to learn more and register. And finally, if you were not able to join us for our last Friday on our Spotlight on Education briefing, please visit our campus toolkit page and share with college students in your life. We're going to be dropping the link in the chat. Part of the toolkit is a campus anti-Semitic reporting tool. Every Jewish student should be aware of this tool. I began today by reminding everyone that we choose life. As I sign off, I'd like to share with you JNF-USA Yom Ha'atzmaut video celebrating this very notion with the help of the JNF-USA Affiliate Special and Uniform Band. We'll see you next Wednesday, May 22nd at the same time. Please stay on to watch this video. I'm Israel Chai.
בקרוב תזרח השמש, ימים יפים מאלה, הלב נלחם בדאגות. כולם יחזרו הביתה, נחכה להם למטה, הלוואי נדע בשורות טובות. כי עם הנצח לעולם לא מפחד, אפילו כשקשה לראות. כולם ביחד, אף אחד פה לא בודד, שישרפו המלחמות. עם ישראל חי, לא תשכח תמיד להיות מאוחדים. עם ישראל חי, בעליות בירידות, גם בשעות הכי קשות, הקדוש ברוך הוא שומר עלינו, מצביע כל עלינו, כי אין לנו עוד מדינה, תעשה שלום בינינו, שמור על ילדינו, כי רק האמונה. עם ישראל, עם ישראל חי, עם ישראל חי. ארצי נחלתנו, לא תיפול כעת רוחנו, מסביב ברזל של חרבות. ויונה תפרוס כנפיים, התקווה בת שנות 2000, עוד נצא לשיר ברחובות. עם הנצח לעולם לא מפחד, אפילו שקשה לראות. כולם ביחד, אף אחד פה לא בודד, שישרפו המלחמות. עם ישראל חי, אם לא תשכח תמיד לראות מאוחדים. עם ישראל חי, בעליות בירידות, גם בשעות הכי קשות, הקדוש ברוך הוא שומר עלינו, מצביע כל עלינו, כי אין לנו עוד מדינה, תעשה שלום בינינו, שמור על ילדינו, כי לא אתה אמונה. עם ישראל, עם ישראל חי, עם ישראל חי.